Hello and welcome back to After the Credits. So, back to the theater finally, yay! Got off work today, wasn't originally going to go to the theater. Well, I was thinking about it, but I was going to go home and then go back to the theater afterwards. But I ended up stopping to talk to my boss who came in a little bit early, and we were just kind of chit-chatting, and before I knew it, an hour and a half had gone by, and I was like, well, I only got like another hour till one of the movies I want to see starts. It would be the earliest showing of the day at like 11:30. I was like, hell with it, I'll just hang around and go see a movie. Wasn't sure how tired I was going to be by the time the movie started, but it got closer and closer, and I was like, yeah, just power through it and get it done. It's a short movie. It was like 98 minutes. So today I went and saw The Boy. Saw this preview a while back, and I was like, oh, that looks like it could actually be kind of good. But I'm always hesitant about that when it comes to horror movies, because almost every time I'm like, oh, that looks like it could be good, it turns out to be crap. This one wasn't necessarily crap, but it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be either. It was a little almost short-winded. Like, they didn't really flesh the story out a whole lot. They were just kind of like, here's the basic information you need to know what's going on. And, it had mostly jump scares, most of the ones you saw in the preview. The ending was slightly predictable. Like, I kind of knew they were going to go in one of two, maybe three directions with it. I was kind of expecting one direction, but I was like, they may be going this direction, but the way this is feeling, they might go this direction, but I'm not 100% sure. Turned out they did, and I was like, yeah, it's not really a huge surprise. I kind of saw it coming, but at the same time, there was a possibility of something else. So it was a bit of a surprise, but not much, because they kind of followed tropes in a way. So yeah, the overall premise of the movie, you basically see in the previews, the girl is hired as a nanny. The old couple portrays this doll as their son. They're leaving to go on vacation. It's the first time they've been on vacation in like 20 years because their son requires constant care. So now they have a nanny, so now they can finally go out and have their vacation. And at first she's kind of like, okay, well, they're gone. I don't really need to play up this role anymore. And she's kind of ignoring the doll. That's the part of the preview where you see her like throw the towel over its head and kind of ignore it. And she starts to notice little things like it occasionally moves around or something, or she's the only person in the house at this point, and some of her stuff starts disappearing. Weird stuff starts happening. She's like, so she kind of thinks there might be someone else in the house. The younger guy that you see in the preview is actually the owner of the local grocery store, and he delivers groceries to their house, and the old couple has authorized him to deliver the girl's pay, which they left with him in advance because they trust him. So she thinks at first it might be him, and then he's kind of like, no, but I can check out the house for you. And as time goes on, she actually starts to think that maybe it is the doll. And like at certain points, she hears like the doll actually talking and stuff from another room. So then she's, she kind of asks for a sign, like, if you're real, can you move? And then nothing will happen. She'll walk out of the room, and then she'll hear a noise, and she'll walk back in, and the doll's moved. So then she kind of starts like following the rules of, taking care of the doll as if it's an actual child. So she's doing all that, and you kind of find out her backstory, as well as more of the backstory of the boy, whose supposedly spirit is possessing the doll. But they don't really give you a lot about it. It's just like, they show a lot of it in the preview. The boy was a little bit odd growing up. He had this friend who was a girl who came around. She disappeared. The boy was supposed to be questioned, but his house caught on fire and he died. And then the doll showed up, and the couple's been raising it as their son ever since because supposedly it's possessed. Then her backstory kind of catches up with her at one point, and I don't want to spoil too much of it, but they kind of give it away early enough in her story. She basically has an abusive boyfriend, ex-boyfriend that she's running away from. Eventually he finds out where she is, and he wants her to come back home with him. So now that she believes the doll is real, she's talking to the doll, and she's like, I won't leave you, but I need your help. So then, this is the point where I was kind of expecting like a Chucky moment, where like the doll comes to life and attacks the guy, because with it being based as a horror movie, that somebody's going to end up dying. So the guy kind of gets attacked, but you never really see the attacker, and then he's kind of like, he yells out to the girl, and he's like, what's going on? And she's like, it's the doll, he's real. And he's like, what do you mean he's real? And again, I don't want to give away the twist, but this is the point where I was like, okay, this is going to go one of two ways. Either it's going to be a Chucky moment, or it's going to be something else, which if you start watching the movie, you'll probably catch. It ends up being the second, not the Chucky moment, but the second version. The third idea that I had kind of played in the same way, but not really. Yeah, that wouldn't have worked with the size of the doll anyway. But yeah, I had a third thing that was kind of a combination of the two, but that didn't play out either. So the second thing basically happened. They have the big climax of the movie where now she is trying to escape the doll. The battle ensues, and of course, it ends the way most horror movies would if you have a villain that you're fighting against, think Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, how those always kind of end with a survivor, basically, whether it be one or more, but at least one survivor. So yeah, that's kind of how it plays out. But then also in the same vein as Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th, the dark force continues, I guess I could say. It has them escaping, and then it kind of cuts back and you see the doll still being there, and then it just kind of rolls credits over the doll. So it's open potentially to a sequel. They could be trying to branch off into an all-new horror villain, similar to what they did with Freddy and Jason, what they sort of started doing with Saw. They kind of developed the Jigsaw puppet as one of the new modern horror villains. But yeah, Jigsaw didn't really have quite the impact that Freddy and Jason or Pinhead or any of them did, or Chucky. But he still fits in as a millennial version, where those were all kind of 90s, 80s, 90s versions. Michael Myers, well, he's more 70s, but yeah. So it looks like they're trying to lead into a potential sequel and possibly a continuing franchise to create another horror villain, but I'm not sure that this one did well enough to had a strong enough story to justify that. If they make a sequel to it, I'd be interested to see where the story is going to go from here. But at the same time, it's not like, oh, they need to make a sequel to this. If it's something that comes along, cool. If not, then I'm not really missing much. It's kind of okay with the way it ended. So as far as a star rating on this one, I'm going to give it I was gonna say a 2.5 because it's kind of a middle of the road horror movie. Like I said, it was pretty predictable, so it kind of gets knocked down from middle of the road. But the preview, of course, like I said, left me expecting a lot more out of this movie than what I actually got, which, like I said, happens a lot with previews, especially for horror movies. They would make it look like, oh, that's going to be pretty good, and then it's just, it was alright. So because of that, it falling into that and using a lot of basic tropes, I'm probably just going to give it a 2. As much as I want to give it a 2.5, I don't think it quite earned it. Like I said, though, just because I rated a 2 doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad movie. It's just, it could have been so much better. And that's what I really hate about most horror movies nowadays, is a lot of them had potential to be so much better, and they just fall so flat. And I don't know why. I will say the jump scares weren't overabundant. They were kind of used sparingly, but they were still there. One thing I did actually like is at one point they had the tense music, and then right when you were expecting the jump scare, everything just went dead quiet. Like the music stopped and everything. And that's when I was kind of waiting, like, okay, what's going to jump out? And nothing happened. And I was like, oh, shit. So I did like that use of the music, so that I will give it credit for that. But yeah, again, that's not enough to really move it above a 2. So I said it's not overall a bad movie. It's just I expected a lot more out of it and was disappointed again as usual. And it could have been a lot better than what it was. There was potential for a new horror villain if they do continue the franchise, but like I said, they're going to have to do a lot of work to actually make that stick. So yeah, 2. If it looked interesting to you, check it out. You might still enjoy it, but most of the story is already revealed in the trailer except for the ending, and the ending in itself was kind of predictable that they would go in one of 2 to possibly 3 ways. So other than that, yeah, it gets a 2. So that is it for this episode. Again, as always, thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, rate, subscribe, and share the video. And not sure what I'm going to get around to seeing next, but I'm probably going to go see something again tomorrow because it's my day off. Maybe I'll make it over to the Dollar Theater and check out a couple things over there. But in the meantime, again, as always, thanks for watching. And until next time, we will see you after the credits.